ladies and gentlemen of the media, the United Nations has no political agenda in Ethiopia. Our agenda is just one: to support the Ethiopian people, Tigrayans, Amharans, Afaris, Somalis, that have suffered so much. We cannot see people go on dying because of bullets or dying because of hunger. We need to do everything to stop this conflict. We need to do everything for humanitarian aid to be distributed everywhere, to everybody. We need to do everything for a dialogue to be established among Ethiopians to solve the problems in Ethiopia. Now, in this context, I was, of course, deeply shocked with the fact that 7 members of the UN had been expelled from Ethiopia and declared persona non grata. We had the occasion to explain why this, in our opinion, is not in line with international law. But on top of that, because so many accusations are appearing, today I asked the ambassador of Ethiopia to provide me with any copy of any written document given by the government of Ethiopia to any UN entity in relation to wrongdoings of any of these 7 members of the UN. And if such a document will be provided, we will, of course, immediately do an investigation why it did not come to my attention. Thank you very much.
Secretary General, we've never seen you do a right of reply ever in the Security Council that I can recall. Is this an expression of the level of your displeasure at the moment with the Ethiopian ambassador?
It's my duty to defend the honor of the United Nations.
Of us today. Thank you all. I just have a brief statement and I'll take a couple of questions. And let me begin by offering my strongest, in fact, the strongest solidarity possible from the United States to the United Nations and its staff worldwide. We called for today's urgent meeting because of the Ethiopian government's reckless expulsion of 7 key UN officials, including the head of UNICEF, the head of the UN OCHA, and a senior official from the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. These expulsions are an affront. They are an affront to the Council, they are an affront to the UN, and they are an affront to United Nations member states and our shared humanitarian principles. As I said in the meeting, there's simply no justification for these actions. The UN is impartial and neutral. These groups are conducting important human rights investigations, and they are delivering life-saving aid. UN personnel must be allowed to return immediately to conduct their urgent work, including trying to stop a potentially devastating and unnecessary famine. These are self-inflicted wounds, and they reflect how, more broadly, this is a conflict where Ethiopians are killing Ethiopians, where Ethiopians are raping Ethiopians. It is Ethiopia's leaders who are letting down the Ethiopian people. 3 years ago, we were talking about Ethiopia as one of the fastest growing countries in Africa, a country full of promise and on the cusp of a major democratic and economic transformation. We were excited because Ethiopia looked like it might become the bedrock of Africa's optimistic future. 1 year ago, or a little less, we were told that the current situation would be a 2-week law enforcement action. Now we're talking about terrible violence. We're talking about mass famine, rape being used as a weapon of war. And I want to make something clear. It is not too late to stop this descent. It is not too late to prevent the famine, to get Ethiopia back on track, to save lives. There is still hope. We need a ceasefire that brings all parties to the table to find a peaceful way forward so that Ethiopians can return to the future we know it can have and its children deserve. The government needs to allow for the resumption of services to northern Ethiopia. There will be no lasting peace in Ethiopia, and the country's broader project of democratic and economic renewal will not be realized until there is a wider dialogue, one that includes all Ethiopians, on the future of that state. It is time for Ethiopian leaders to do the right things for the people of Ethiopia. Thank you. I will take a couple of questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Ambassador. Michelle Nichols from Reuters.
Hi, Michelle.
Given what we just heard in the Council from some of your colleagues, it doesn't look like any Council action is imminent. So what's the US planning to do? Are you going to impose sanctions soon on Ethiopia? And if I could, just on Afghanistan, we heard earlier from the Afghanistan director of WFP warning about the collapse of the Afghan economy if there's no sort of injection of cash. What is the US doing to try and kickstart the Afghan economy? Thanks.
Well, first on the question of Ethiopia, I think the fact of the council meeting today and speaking directly to the Ethiopians was an action. And believe me, it was not an action that was easy to take, but we were able to bring the council together in unity to speak about the situation in Ethiopia and have the Secretary General speak about the situation in Ethiopia. And we called upon the government to reverse its decision, and we called on the government to move forward on a ceasefire and look for a way forward. In terms of the United States, we do have tools at our disposal. You may have noted in my statement, I suggested it could be that we do a resolution. But also, as you know, the President signed an executive order a couple of weeks ago that gives us the possibility of putting sanctions against individuals for gross violations of human rights and blocking of humanitarian assistance. And that is available for our use when we need it. On the situation in Ethiopia, it is not the U.S. government's responsibility, but we have to work together as the international community to find a way to support Afghanistan moving forward. But I also will add that it is also the responsibility of the Taliban to provide an enabling environment that allows for the world to provide them with that assistance. We continue to provide humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan, and we have worked to find ways around the sanctions regime to ensure that humanitarian assistance continues to flow into the country. And we will look forward to working with others in the international community to see what we can do to support the people of Afghanistan moving forward.
James Bays, Al Jazeera. Can I ask you about the new allegations that were made there by the Ethiopian ambassador to justify the expulsions? He said that UN officials had inflated and falsified data, even made up deaths. What is your response to those allegations?
You heard what the Secretary General said in response to those allegations. It's our first time hearing them. The Secretary General asked for evidence. He asked for evidence that the Ethiopian government had brought any of these allegations to the attention of the United Nations, and none of us have seen that. And as a UN Security Council member and a UN member state, we too want to see those allegations and to see where they're coming from. And the fact that you noted they are new allegations, they weren't even lodged prior to the 7 individuals being kicked out, raises some concerns in my mind about those.
Thank you. That's all we have time for today.
Thank you.
So, good afternoon. So we're heading into a discussion on Ethiopia. As everyone knows, we called this meeting because, frankly, we think we're staring into an abyss. Without immediate scaled-up humanitarian action, we're looking really at the prospect of potentially mass mortality on the ground. Overwhelming parts of Ethiopia. We know the situation on the ground is dire. We know well over 5 million people are in need. People are actually, as we're all standing here, they're dying. They're starving, they're hungry, they don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have access to basic fundamental human services. I was shocked today when I saw a figure of 80% of pregnant and lactating women are acutely malnourished. This is just not something that can stand. So we absolutely want to see a full and open discussion today. I'm really glad the Secretary-General is joining us. It's the second time he's been with us on this issue. I think it shows what a priority he's giving to this situation. We will say again, as we've said before, this is not a natural disaster. This is caused by political decisions. We want to see full, upscaled, immediate humanitarian access, a cessation to all hostilities, and clearly need for political dialogue.
Do you expect the Secretary General to call for the reinstatement of the 7 expelled humanitarian workers?
Well, I expect to hear from the Secretary General about the impact that this expulsion has had. We think that the expulsion of the workers, for which we've seen no credible basis for the allegations that are being made, we want to see humanitarian support scaled up in Ethiopia. So we don't see how this works. We honestly believe that this undermines the confidence between the UN and Ethiopia. So we want to see an end to this phase. If I could just add that, the Prime Minister Abiy has just been reinstated. A historic opportunity now for the government of Ethiopia to get back on a path. We saw a bright future for Ethiopia a number of years ago. But if this opportunity is missed, I think we're staring at catastrophe.
What does the council need to do? Do you plan to have a statement from the council?
You know that Ireland had wanted to see a statement last week already. We would like to see the council speak out. Let's listen to today's debate. It's a big moment that we will be at the table. I'm delighted that Ethiopia will be with us today, explaining the situation to us as members of the council. Ireland will be very happy, but we're not ready yet.
Thank you very much.
That there is no statement yet or discussed from the council members?
Well, until now, yes. This is the 9th month Ireland is on the council. Every single month since we arrived, we have raised this issue. You know that we have looked high and low to find ways to get the voice of the council register on this. We are deeply concerned nationally. We're deeply concerned as humanitarians and as just ordinary individuals. Seeing the reality on the ground in Ethiopia is shocking. So we want to see the council take its responsibility, stand up and speak out. That's why we came to this table originally, and that's what we're trying to do.
An open
Thanks.
meeting gives us that chance. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we just wanted to say that we are also part of the group that has called for this open meeting, which we think is extremely important, that we will now hear the voices, hopefully, of a unified council speaking about the need for unimpeded humanitarian access in a situation where Ethiopia is facing probably a famine-like situation, and the decision of the expulsion of the UN staff, as we said on Friday when we first heard about it, needs to be reversed.
Time for a council statement.
We think so, absolutely. But the fact that we now have an open meeting and the message will be loud and clear from council members is also very, very important.
But isn't it disappointing that you are not discussing even a president or a statement on this regard?
We will
We will see what happened in the meeting, but from our side, we would have liked to see a statement coming out of this meeting.
And Russia and China have the same objections than on Friday?
We have to wait and hear what they say. Thank you.
Thanks. Again, the main issue is that we have open
You really exist. Okay, good. No, I think we'll just. I think it's a good opportunity to listen to the Secretary General, and I'm sure he will call for cooperation for access. Humanitarian access in Ethiopia is needed. I think there are 5 million people who are just in need of food and drugs and everything. So urgent access is needed. We need the government of Ethiopia to restore full access to UN agencies. And beyond humanitarian access, the sooner we get a political track back on track, if I may say so, I think the better, because there will not be any solution with conflict, and so we need a political track as soon as we can. Yeah.
Does the Council need to speak with one voice?
Always.
Afghanistan question?
Good morning, how are you? I have the day's business for you. And at 10, we're going to have briefing and consultations on MONUSCO, the UN stabilization force in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and also on DRC sanctions. And at 3, we'll have consultations on UNDOF, the UN disengagement observer force. Thank you. Ambassador, there's some talk of a meeting soon, perhaps not today, perhaps tomorrow, on Ethiopia. Are you able to confirm anything at this stage?
I cannot confirm anything at this stage, but the moment I learn of it, I will let you know. We have indications of an appetite for that.
And what is Kenya's view about the current situation in Ethiopia and regarding those 7 UN workers who had to leave the country after being declared persona non grata?
Well, Kenya has very much engaged in the Security Council on the question of what's happening in Tigray and Ethiopia as part of the A3+1. And I think we were very clear about the need for unimpeded humanitarian access, as well as the need to see progress in political negotiations to bring up a ceasefire. I think the A3+1 has not changed its position on that, but continued to urge the parties to understand that the military option would only further divide the country and make peace even more difficult to achieve. And I think the final part of our statement as A3+1 said, if I can recall, that they should not think that they can break each other's will as a basis for building a peaceful and stable country. Thank you.
Can I ask you another question about the sanction committee? The blockage by Russia to renew the sanction committee for different countries, RDC, Mali.
I'll take that tomorrow morning, if you don't mind. Yeah. Thank you. Let me start this meeting.